You're listening to the Practical Wealth Show with Curtis May.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Practical Wealth Show. So I have, this is for you real estate investors. I'm going to title this show, Should Real Estate Investors Manage Their Own Property? So I have a special guest today, a good friend of mine, Kim Avant-Babb. So Kim is, let me tell you a little bit about her. Kim is a real estate developer, a landlord strategist, an educator, mentor, and a daydreamer. So we're going to talk about that in a second. So let me tell you a little bit about her. Since 1996, along with her partner and husband, great guy, he has operated Babb Properties LLC, a real estate development firm headquartered in Sicklerville, New Jersey, that redevelops urban residential properties in her native Philadelphia in order to provide quality housing and build stable communities. And so here is why she's on this show. So because we were talking about this one day, I said her LLC celebrates 30 years of a, hear me now, zero eviction rate, prides itself on quality customer service, landlord integrity, landlord docs 30, a property management document binding. So basically she has developed a program that they have been using. So this is not something she made up for the last 30 years. And so she's, I'm gonna tell you, we were at a meeting and she had the thought. I was like, listen, that's a product. You need to start packaging that and do that. So I know I'm not responsible for any of this, but I think I validated what she was thinking. So Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Curtis, for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Glad to have you. So Kim, tell them what I didn't tell them. Anything I didn't tell them?
Anything you didn't tell them. So actually, what is the story behind the story of how my husband and partner and I got into real estate was what we call a motherly nudge. We had no intentions of being in real estate, but my mother-in-law, Estella Babb, giving all credit to her, in her 70s was still purchasing real estate.
Wow.
And impressed on her children to buy real estate. And of course, at that time, we didn't have the finances, but we finally, heard the nudge, not made the offer, but she made the offer to give my husband his inheritance down to buy a house next to the house that she was purchasing for $14,000, with the understanding that when she died, he would not get an inheritance. So he said, okay, we bought the house for $14,000 in Graduate Hospital in 1994. And fast forward, we know what Graduate Hospital market is like in Philadelphia. We're talking about,
if you're from Philadelphia, that's a big deal. So so you bought it. Let's tell them this, because they don't, if you're not listeners around the country, that blew up. South Philly is super hot. And what's that value of that property worth now?
$370,000.
Right. See, so that's one heck of an inheritance, right? So What does it say? A wise man in the Bible, wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, right? And so I think that, you've got to, but you have to pass down knowledge, right? That's what she passed down, a philosophy.
And so the light bulb went off once we made that purchase, inherited a tenant, and really began to educate ourselves on real estate. So fast forward, we have been given the opportunity to acquire a number of properties in Graduate Hospital and in a neighboring neighborhood of Point Breeze. And that's been the foundation for us to build our rent and hold portfolio and build a multi-million-dollar portfolio.
Did you always rent and hold, buy and hold? Was your strategy?
Yes, that's been our strategy from the beginning. And we have held on to that strategy. That allowed us to hone our skills in property management. We started out, like I mentioned, buying this one property, but prior to that, we were managing my mother-in-law's property and other relatives' property. We were just winging it as a young couple until we got our own and really began to build some processes around property management.
Okay. That is, and so what would you say in your mind, you guys' business accomplishment in real estate so far?
Our big accomplishment is really, as I mentioned, building that multi-million-dollar portfolio, buying in the right location at the right time for the right price.
Right. And what's interesting is that you're both of you all, and I want to put this out there. We don't need to say where, but y'all both work full-time jobs.
That's correct. That's correct. And I believe that our full-time positions have allowed us a skill set to really complement our real estate growth. I've worked in corporate America and state government in a very, administrative position. And my partner, with his own natural skills, is a troubleshooter. He knows all the trades in reference to construction. So we run a 2-lane highway.
Right.
He handles anything construction and maintenance. I handle anything administrative. I deal with all of the tenants and all of the customer service.
Right. See, one of the things I hear is they run there, and you said this, so I want you to elaborate. You run your real estate business like a business.
Correct. And I think that's one of the challenges for the 16.7 million landlords out there. So in the United States, there's 43 million occupied rentals, right? 16.7 million of those rentals are owned by small landlords, mom and pop shops. They own on average 1 to 2 units. The other 27 million are owned by business entities. They own 100, 1,000, thousands of rentals. So our focus and our market are that 16 million mom and pop landlords. And so, the objective is to encourage them to run it like a business. People end up having rental properties for different reasons. They may inherit them. They may just, coincidentally purchase a rental property. But
I have at least at any given time, just smaller, anywhere between 1 and 8 properties. And they always had vacancies, some problem, going on that they were hooked. They had the bug, but they were frustrated, and I've been through some with our rental properties. And I've got somebody that a friend of mine in financial services, and I'm sick of this. I was like, listen, you have a systems problem. You're doing the right thing. You got like 10 properties and you're sick of them, but you can't hand that off. You got to fix it, And so talk about fixing it, running it like a business, because if they can fix it, they might not be so fed up with it and they could probably grow, which is where you come in.
And I agree. And I really look at that audience in 3 different categories. One is a wannabe landlord. The other is an existing landlord. And the third is an existing landlord who doesn't want the day-to-day responsibility, who wants to hire a property manager.
Okay.
And so all 3 of those individuals need, in my opinion, they need to understand the basic process foundation, because the sexy side is the real estate side, buy, wholesale, flip, buy and hold. That's the front end. That's what I call the seed, right?
Right.
But the soil, when we're talking about the buy and hold model, is the management, the solicitation, and the sustaining of quality tenants. That's where rubber hits the road, in my opinion. And that's where a lot of the missteps happen in the rent and hold example. There has to be a clear, thorough system and process around screening rental applicants. That's where the missteps happen, and I believe. And I was just in a conversation with a landlord yesterday, purchased our Landlord Docs 30 system. Her rental had been vacant for a year. She said, well, I have a potential a tenant. She's a good friend of a friend of mine.
Okay.
I said, but do you know the applicant? She said, but I know her. She's a good friend of a friend of mine. I said, and so herein lies the challenge. You don't know this person that wants to rent your property. You need to screen them. They may not be a viable tenant for you based on the screening. And so I encouraged her to incorporate an online screening service to do the credit background, the criminal background, check the employment, call the previous landlord, call the employer to make sure there's a consistent full-time cash flow. So that's that existing landlord that, in my opinion, needs to create a solid system and be committed to that system.
Right.
Consistently, right? And then I spoke with a landlord just this weekend as well, because I do some, consultation calls, and she is on her 3rd property management company. She's frustrated. So in my opinion, that individual investor needs to understand the process to an extent and impose upon that property management company the standards and the requirements to service their properties, and not just leave.
Yes, that's such a good point. So you even if you turn it, because a lot of people turn over, they don't know what's up from down, but you have to you got to manage a little bit so you can separate the wheat from the chaff. You know what I mean? And then if you have a system, they have to run your playbook, but they're going to, your screening qualifications, all that stuff. But if you don't have none, they're going to do what they do.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And so they're going to do what they do, but does that meet the standard of your business?
Right.
And so I call them.
They might get somebody leaves and they're going to get their money. So they want to get it rented out as soon as possible so they can get paid. But that may not be your ideal prospect, a tenant. Is that what you mean?
I believe a leading question has to be to landlords: what's your motivation for being a landlord? Mm-hmm. Is your motivation strictly money, or is your motivation building assets and creating generational wealth? Okay. So from a landlord or investor who doesn't want the day-to-day, hands-on, and they hire a property manager, the property management company, to your point, their motivation is money. They need to get a tenant so they can get paid and they're out.
Right.
And they deliver that tenant to you. And if your objective is to build assets and a consistent positive cash flow, then you need a good, viable tenant that's going to deliver what I call the harvest. Because we have the seed is the real estate.
Right.
The soil is the property management, because you got to put that seed in fertile soil. And the harvest is the positive cash flow from consistent, in full, on time rent payments from that tenant. And so, even if you don't want the day-to-day, hands-on operation, you need that harvest. So that property management company has to deliver that directly or indirectly.
Because the goal is cash flow. I mean, one of the things that in our show is all about cash flow and about, building financial independence. So how would you just define, I didn't put you on the spot, but the financial independence? Because see, the real estate is the vehicle, right? It is your vehicle of choice. But what, to you and your husband, what's financial independence mean to you?
Financial independence is to have more income than expenses.
That's right. See, this is unscripted. Passive income greater than expenses, right?
More income than expenses, and your income allows you to live a certain lifestyle.
Right. And so have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Absolutely.
Okay. And see, so the first chapter in Rich Dad Poor Dad is rich people don't work for money, right? They work to buy assets. And so you just described seed, soil, harvest. So positive cash flow is the harvest, but real estate is your asset class, and you got to run it like a business. That's beautiful. I love the seed, soil, harvest. So that's our hook right there. I might make
that's my hook.
That's your hook. And so any other big mistakes that you think that are, I know a major one is screen your applicants. Any other one or two things you want to share that where landlords are sabotage themselves in self-managing their units?
Sure. Another important one is failing to follow and enforce your lease. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I use the example of dating your rental applicant. Okay. So you have someone who wants to rent your property. You're getting to know them during that screening process. So it's like the dating. Okay. Right. And so you make some agreements. They agree to them, which is the lease document. You put the ring on the finger by giving them the key. Okay. And in a relationship, it's all about communication and understanding that prenup, which is the lease. Right. And if there are some agreements or clauses that are not adhered to, somebody's got to call that out.
Right.
And so it's the landlord's responsibility to consistently, not being invasive, to monitor their assets. Okay. Mm-hmm. I believe you need to visit your property at least quarterly, if not 2 times a year, which is our practice. You need to get in, make sure that, that tenant is adhering to the lease. They haven't moved anybody in. Mm-hmm. They haven't changed the locks. Mm-hmm. Okay. They haven't done certain things that are prohibitive in your lease. And if they have, you as the enforcer, you need to call them out on it.
Mm.
And if there is an impasse, then that's when the divorce comes,
Mm-hmm.
which is the eviction, right? Nobody likes that. And it can be dirty, but nobody likes it. However, as the landlord, as the gatekeeper, because you are the lord of your land, you
Right.
have to make that process, and you have to enforce the agreements that you and the tenant have made. And I see that as a challenge sometimes for landlords.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking about dating. I was talking to a friend of mine, newly divorced, and we were talking about dating. I said, listen, what you got to and this is what I realized in dating. You know, Chris Rock says you don't date the person, you're really dating their representative, you know. And so everybody's on their best behavior when you're first dating. They're projecting their best self. Oh, hey, Miss So-and-so, I got my first in my, well, anybody can get first and last as a security deposit, you know, and that might be the only money you ever get. And so they're all great. And then all of a sudden they, if you interview them, you can see the questions. You know, where did you live at before?
Yes.
You know, why are you moving?
Yes. And those are, they're included in a series of questions that ask this applicant. And I've said in previous, presentations, because this is my side of the house, I turn into an investigator.
Right.
The first thing that I do when I get a rental application, I go straight to social media, and I go straight to the internet search engines, and I Google the heck out of them, because I want to see them, out of my sight. Like you said, I'm measuring their integrity. I'm measuring their behavior. I have a friend, she's the only African-American judge in Cumberland County in New Jersey, Judge Demetrica Ruiz. And she has said, and I've quoted her, as a judge, I stand in judgment of people every day. Mm-hmm. As a landlord, initiating that rental screening process, I'm standing in judgment of you. Mm-hmm. I'm gathering all of your data. I'm looking at all of your information. I'm measuring your character in addition to your ability to pay and your past behavior in order to make a qualified, data-driven decision. And here's the hook. Here's the final piece of our screening process. We visit, if it's geographically close, we visit where you currently live. Mm. It's stated on our application. A part of the application process is to visit your current resident. Why? Because if we've just done a total gut rehab and we put $40,000, $50,000 into a property, it's pristine, it's brand new, I want to go and see how you living. Right. Are you maintaining the property? Are you, is it clean, et cetera? And there's a story where we actually rejected an elderly couple that was an applicant based on that last and final component. We visited their property. It was not acceptable. And we had just invested like $40,000 into a rehab. So if you're living like that there, chances are you're going to live like that in our property.
Especially at that age, you ain't going to change. Leopard doesn't change their spots. That is so basic, but that is so, folks, you win with the basics. That's really common sense. I mean, because otherwise you paying somebody to live in your house. And if you're in our area, so in Philly, it's really hard to get them out because the laws, my wife is a real estate attorney, favor the tenant. So you need to not get the wrong people in there in the first place, and your life will be much happier.
Correct. And I've had this conversation on our quest to, bring our value to the real estate marketplace with our experience. And that is, number one, we've never seen the inside of the tenant landlord court. Right. Mm-hmm. And actually it's on my list as a field trip. I just want to go there and be in the room and hear, smell, and touch that emotion firsthand. Okay. And it's a place that we want to help people avoid experiencing. And we talked about someone earlier in our conversation before we came on that we both know, who I had this conversation with, and he said, I can tell you exactly what it's like in the eviction court. I've been there 50 million times, Right. And I said, I feel bad for you. I want to help alleviate that experience through incorporating, upgrading, and inserting some stronger processes and procedures into your property management systems.
why you decided to share this? Because a lot of people are just like, hey, let me just, we can run our business and, travel and live our lifestyle. What made you decide, okay, I need to share this with the world?
For two reasons. Number one, we had no intentions of, creating this report card, this stellar report card of 0% eviction rate in 30 years. We actually just realized it about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like, duh, we've never evicted anyone. We have phenomenal tenants because of our screening process. We only want the cream of the crop.
Right.
Okay. So that was one. And then the other, my husband would come to me occasionally and ask me for a blank copy of our lease. He wanted to share it with someone, a blank copy of our rules and regulations. And the light bulb went off one time. I was seeing somewhere in my optics, Microsoft bundle.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at all the documents that we had created over the years and said, we have a bundle of documents that has, become our system. What about offering this bundle of documents that are tried and true to the marketplace to help them alleviate that frustration and that pain point of eviction? And so I was pregnant with the idea for about 3 years. And finally, we formulated it, created online, downloadable digital documents that landlords can use. They don't have to recreate the wheel. We've already done it.
So tell them about that. So that's called
Landlord Docs 30.
Landlord Docs 30. So tell them a little bit about that.
So Landlord
I actually just did, but tell them.
Yes. So obviously Landlord Docs and the 30 represents the 30 years of 0% eviction rate.
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
And we have two bundles. We have a full document bundle, which is 17 individual downloadable fillable documents that you can use right away. They include our application. They include the 10-page lease. They include the rules and regulations. We have created scripts of a list of questions that you ask when you call the landlord, a script of questions that you ask when you call the employer. So that full document bundle gives you a lot of different documents to help you facilitate your property management. Then we have what's called a starter bundle. So if you're not ready for the full bundle of 17 documents, we've got a starter bundle, which is 6 documents to just get you started. And that's the application, that includes those scripts and some other documents just to get you started.
Oh, that is phenomenal, guys. Because if you're using this asset class called real estate, you got to get your money. And so this is going to ensure you get your money. So this, I don't care what it costs, because it's not a cost, it's an investment, right? Sure. And unless you want to pay somebody to live in your house. And so what, how can they find out more about and find out where to get this great thing?
Sure. Absolutely. We have built a website. Mm-hmm. Your listeners can visit www.lldocs, that's DOCS 30.com. That's www.LODOCS30.com.
Okay, so we'll put that in the show notes. And then you also have a tip sheet.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
it's on the same site, isn't it? So
if you go to our website and mm-hmm. you can download a free copy of our landlord tip sheet, which basically mm-hmm. runs through a number of tips for landlords to incorporate, to consider in running their business better. And also there is the landlord pledge. As a landlord, I do pledge to treat my tenants right, to enforce my lease. So it's a nice pledge that one can look in the truth mirror as a landlord and pledge their commitment to this process and being a landlord. So if you go to
about the tenants, you might not be a good landlord.
Well, you know what? You're absolutely right. And I belong to a number of social media landlord tenant groups, mm-hmm. And I share with my partner in conversation. Especially with this COVID-19 climate that we're in, it's kind of like pulling the scab over and illuminating some of the behaviors on mm-hmm. both sides of the aisle. And some landlords have issues of invasiveness, non-communication, and tenants as well. And I read something recently that states there's not a bad landlord, there's not a bad tenant, it's bad communication.
Mm.
Your systems, your documents, and the mutual understanding is the foundation of that communication.
Mm-hmm.
And if you agree on the landlord side, the tenant agrees on the tenant side, on that prenuptial, which is the lease, and you abide by it, you adhere to it, that's the basis of the communication.
So you also, I think you offer, you told me you're going to offer our
Yes.
listeners a discount. We like discounts.
Discount, yeah.
And I want y'all to let her know that when you call her, where you heard her at, so we know our message is getting out, because this is some serious stuff. So tell them about that and how they do it, how they get that.
Absolutely. So for your listeners, especially today, for them, Landlord Docs 30 is offering a 20% discount. The code, if you go to our website, is LAND20. The discount code is LAND20. So visit our website at www.LLdocs30.com. If you choose purchase of one of the two bundles, you can get a 20% discount. The code again is LAND20.
Okay, awesome. Let me ask you one question. I always like to know, when I meet brilliant people, what are they reading? So I'm always looking for new stuff. What's on your reading list lately? Last 2 or 3 good books you've read, and so I can give people. I always hear my list. So I want them to hear somebody else's list.
I am so addicted to reading. Since I was young, I've been an avid reader, and so I consistently read probably about 3 to 4 books simultaneously.
Okay.
And so right now, because of this new product, it's really important for us to embrace social media. So I'm reading Crushing It by Carrie. Yep. Another piece that's important, I'm reading a book called Startup: Insider Secrets on Building Your Business Credit by Herman Dolce. This is, like you asked about Rich Man, Poor Dad. Annually or a couple times a year, I read Who Moved My Cheese.
Okay.
Yes, by Spencer Johnson, Dr. Spencer Johnson. That's been out for years. I give that out as gifts to people. It's a very thin, whimsical book about 4 characters, 2 are mice and 2 are humans, but it's all about change. Who moved my cheese? And you can correlate it to your personal, professional, relationship life, and it's for children and adults, just to figure out what your personality is and how you manage change. Who moved my cheese?
Oh, I love it. Okay. I've seen that. I have not read that, so I want to go ahead and pick that up. I like giving out books as gifts also.
Yes.
And so I'm kind of like, we're the same. I'm a nerd. I'm probably reading, I'm trying to get through Atlas Shrugged, because I'm reading that with one of my clients right now. And it's huge, but it's fantastically written, and it's pissing me off at the same time, because a lot of the stuff is going on right now politically, economically. And then I'm reading Traffic by Russell Brunson. I heard somebody say, if you want to, the number one skill that you can get is learning how to get customers, for your thing. Yeah. You have to work on your mindset. See, I want you to hear other people. See, success leaves clues, right?
Yeah.
And so people talk about I'm going to do a show on this. People talk about the income gap, right, of the 1%ers. But nobody ever talks about the behavior gap. And so she just gave you a behavior. She reads 3 to 4 books simultaneously, and probably 3 to 4 books a month at least, or every month and a half. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say yes. And my reading list is diverse, because the other book I didn't mention that I'm still in is called The Color of Law by Richard Rothstein. And it really focuses on the forgotten history of how our government segregated America. So it focuses on housing and housing development, and how through government, through laws, through legislations, how America segregated housing.
So it's still real estate related, but it's because you got to know history. See, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And I think that a lot of people don't. They don't know nothing past like 5 years ago, and they have a short memory. And I think that is. I'm reading like the Success Secrets of Black Millionaires, and then I like studying biographies of people, because it's they all start out poor, and you go back to the behavior gap. What do they do? What are the traits that you can emulate? You have to look for that kind of stuff. And where are the laws? Because here's the thing, even within the laws, there were still, dare we say it, Black people or people win. But I say Black people right now, and winning through all that kind of stuff. So it's, even if it's hard, you can still be successful.
Yes, I agree. And to your point, success leaves clues. So, and past behavior also many times exemplifies future behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't know our history, and if we're not prepared based on knowledge, then
Mm-hmm.
how can we plan, strategize, and get the harvest from these?
Yeah, I study economics. I like to know why things happen, so that I can prepare. Yes. And kind of see, you got to be able to see storms coming. So you got to think from more of a macroeconomic viewpoint. And most people just, what I call, distracted by what I call bread and circuses, right? And, watching TV, watching the Ozarks. So right now, and as we record this, we're still hopefully coming out of it. We're still in the COVID-19, pandemic, stay in your house. Well, you don't stay in your house and binge watch Netflix. You need to be learning stuff. You need to be, this is a good time to, if you're listening to this and you're a real estate investor, then this is the time where you work on your game. You need to go, like, as soon as you finish listening to this, and buy her stuff and study her stuff and install her stuff and get a better business, so you can come out of this. And once you get this, you might, you'll be more comfortable scaling, because you don't think, well, more houses, more problems. You'll have a path to building a successful business and then handing it off to somebody, but you have to manage the manager.
And as Dr. Eric Thomas would say, in the midst of adversity, execute.
I love that. All right.
Execute. So to your point, during this time, we need to be utilizing our time, being intentional on what we're focused on, what we're working on, and, find the silver lining in this dark cloud and work your plan.
Because there always is one if you look. It's just a question of how you see the world. Okay, you can be I was on a Jay Abraham podcast. You could be a victor or you can be a victim.
Mm-hmm. So, I agree. So there's a lot of work to be done, and a lot of opportunity. Yeah, we have to be prepared though, and stay educated, and look in the truth mirror, as David Goggins talks about. Phenomenal motivational guy. He talks about that truth mirror. We have to look in the truth mirror and ask ourselves hard questions. Why am I a landlord? What's my motivation? And, create some steps and processes to begin to move down the path of implementing why you are a landlord, and be the lord of your land and not the slouch of your slum. Because if you're motivated by money, unfortunately, there's a category of slumlords out there. They're motivated. They are not motivated by building strong, sustaining assets to generate positive cash flow. Otherwise, they would not, allow those inferior environments to exist. Their motivation is money. But if you look in the truth mirror and say, my commitment is to build strong, viable real estate assets, then your commitment and your why is different. You want to incorporate some infrastructure and some processes and policies that's going to build strong bones in your business and your operation that will exist even after you're gone.
Right. Listen, I'm going to let that be the last word, because I can't even say anything better than that. So, guys, Kim, thanks for being on the Practical Wealth Show. Yeah, this is awesome. I think you dropped a lot of value, and I think I'm so glad you created this and put this out there. I think it's going to help a lot of people. So, guys, if you listen, like, and share, definitely share this episode with people that are in real estate, thinking about being in real estate. And reach out to Kim. And guys, thank you. Go out there and make it a prosperous week.
Thanks for listening to Practical Wealth. To access the show notes and resources, go to practicalwealthshow.com. To get your questions on the show, go to practicalwealthshow.com. This show is for entertainment purposes only. Before you make any investment decisions, consult a professional. This show is copyrighted by Practical Wealth. Written permission must be granted before